5:31 on a Monday. Time for Fine Tailored Suits, brought to you by Quality Tire with 10 locations across Saskatchewan. QualityTire.ca.
Yes.
Sometimes, Glenn, you just want to sing it, right? You just want to sing it.
I got to get the chords to that song, DT, and I'll just play along and you can belt it out and away we go.
Oh, I think the folks, well, let's run that by the folks at Quality Tire because I don't know. They got professionals doing the singing part. I don't know if they need me. Let me throw this at you. You played football for a long time. Would you have broken your own thumb if you thought it would make you a better football player?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have. It reminds me of the Ronnie Lott story. Ronnie Lott was one of my favorite safeties in football. And I had a couple played in the CFL. A couple that played in the NFL, but Ronnie Lott was at top of the list. And you know the story.
Yep.
Ronnie Lott's in a practice. He's catching a punt. He injures his pinky finger to a point where they have to reset it and put a sort of cast on it with the rubber bands and all that. And the medical professionals ask him, you probably can't play in the playoff game if we do the procedure. And Lott says, cut it off. I don't know how true that story is. I'm not sure how much it's been embellished over the years, but I love it.
The digit is not there. Man, football in hands are a real, like you see football players now and they're moving around well and they're in their 40s and 50s, but some of them just got the Chris Walby hand or the offensive lineman hand where that pinky will never point the right direction ever again. It just, you see it. It's a stark reminder of the toll it takes on the body. Oh,
well, especially the linemen, right? I mean, they're down there in the trenches, and every single play, they're basically using your hands. It's something that maybe we don't talk about enough. We always think that they're sort of button heads and shoulders, and that's where the contact happens. But the best offensive linemen, the best defensive linemen have great hands.
Yeah, there was a story in Sports Illustrated. This was, gosh, I don't know, it was forever ago, and it had Johny United on the cover. And he was holding a football in his two hands and his face is in the frame. And the story goes on to say that actually Johny United can't hold a football anymore because of damage he suffered. And there was a 30-something offensive lineman who couldn't hold his own kid because he was afraid he was going to drop them because of the injuries and nerve damage he'd suffered as a player. And you go,
but you know what, DT? You know what, though? I'll tell you this. Honestly, my contractor, who's a great friend of mine, and he built my deck and redid my kitchen. It's what he does for a living. He's on we call it the football line in our beer league hockey team. And he is also, he wakes up every day with a really bad back because for his entire life, he's been a contractor working on houses and renos and things like that. There's a lot of jobs that have risk, and we all understand what those risks are. And I guarantee you that Johny United and everybody else you ask would say, I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Yeah. I wonder how much that tide is turning from even from when you played to, you know what, business decision. Like I watch a guy like Andrew Harris now, and Andrew has absolutely the force to run dudes over, but he will just, you know what, it's not worth a half a yard in this moment. I'm just going to step out of bounds and start again. I, as a fan and a guy who thinks long-term, I go, yeah, I really like as we call them now, business decisions of you don't need to get every little bit of it. If there's a risk of one, long-term damage, two, brain injuries, stuff like that. I find myself watching for that more and more in the CFL.
Well, yeah. But that's just playing smart. That's playing smart. It's like when a quarterback slides or gets out of bounds in a game that, this isn't the first down he needs to get to the playoffs. So he's going to play smart and take that one more hit and get rid of it and drop a hit off. I mean, that's smart football. But no one on the field is thinking about the long term, and football is becoming safer all the time because of rule changes, equipment changes. Certainly the way there's a difference in how we teach tackling now and where the head goes and how the head is positioned when you teach tackling at the lowest levels so that kids aren't putting their head in harm's way when you got to take the helmet and the head out of the process. The game is still physical and we love that part of it, but it's becoming safer all the time. And when I go to talk to kids, DT,
Mhm.
And I'm talking to a jamboree football group of 12-year-olds playing contact football. I always ask the same question right out of the gate. What do you love about the game most? And you know what they almost always say? I get to hit somebody.
Yep. Oh yeah. No, that's what drew me in back in Bantam and then in high school. And yeah, it's just being my age and going, man, football has really evolved a lot just in my lifetime, much less from the my coach who played for the Montreal Alouettes when it would have been, tape it up, rub some dirt on it, take a salt tablet and waters for wimps to where we are now. We're making real nice improvements. We wanted to talk about, you have some information on return to play because your province where you are right now, BC, is making some real strides in that area and getting folks vaccinated.
Yeah, big rollout here or announcement, I guess, to the vaccine rollout and update on exactly how BC will handle it. And I'll, just sum it up by saying that the current modeling right now suggests that everyone in the province can be vaccinated by July. Now that, when you think about it, is 2 months earlier than what was previously thought by the medical professionals. They were saying September, and now they've moved it to July. And that does not count in the modeling, the extra vaccines like AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. So basically they're still going off the Pfizer and Moderna shipments and what is predicted over the next few months. And they're going through their different trials like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and exactly where you might fit in age-wise and all that, doing it by age and the frontline workers, of course, first. So really good news on that front, that it's gone from September to July. Now that's still very close to the start of a CFL season. Now we want to start in June. That would mean camps in May. So we're not quite there yet. But when you bring in AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson, boy, it starts to look very positive. Now, if those numbers and shipments go up in the next 2 or 3 weeks and Johnson & Johnson is approved in Canada, now we're talking about the modeling changes quickly. And maybe it's May or June before the entire province is completely vaccinated. And that would mean stadiums would open up, even if it is not full stadiums, but it would look like, you could put fans in the stands, which is very important, of course. So very good news on that front. And I also saw from Tom Gazzola, and I don't know if you've met Tom before, DT.
Yeah, no, I haven't, but TSN 1260 in Edmonton.
Yes, exactly. So he is reporting that OEG, which is Oilers Entertainment Group, is putting together a proposal right now for Alberta Health, which in that proposal, it's apparently a big document, 50-page document, would allow fans back in the stands by April in the NHL. So, we'll monitor that very closely and see what happens there. Apparently right now, there are around 5,000 fans going to Stars games down in the States. Now I'm glad that Canada, yeah, exactly. I'm glad that Canada is being more cautious in this approach. Agreed. And taking their time more. I'm big proponent of that for sure. But having said that, if we do get to April and hockey can start to have, 5,000 fans in the building, or, maybe even it starts with 2,000, and then that grows from April to May, again, really positive signs that we're getting close to that, that mark where we want to be, so that we could, if you have to postpone and maybe play without fans for 2 games, not a bad deal if you can make that happen. So very positive news out of BC. I'm sure the same will be announced very shortly in all the rest of the provinces. And hopefully the Oilers can get fans in the stands, and we can see how they do that from a protocol perspective and borrow from that, those ideas.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind for me in that. If Alberta were to allow X number of fans at an indoor facility, how could they possibly say, well, you can't have X number of fans at an outdoor facility like Commonwealth Stadium where the Edmonton football team plays? That, from a virus perspective, doesn't seem to make sense to me. The other part of it becomes, I've always been curious as we go along and how we're going to react to certain landmarks. So when people get the vaccine, will they immediately just jump back into their regular life? And I go, well, no, I really hope they don't, because 1, nothing's 100% effective. And 2, it's probably best if we don't encourage everybody to just start pouring out into your local stores and shops and restaurants, even if, if I have the vaccine and I go, does that inspire someone else to go when they don't have the vaccine? And then we end up in a real problem. So I feel like the onus then falls back on me to, even after vaccinated, keep wearing my mask and keep practicing good things until someone who knows better about viral spread says, okay, we can all get back to what's actually normal and not this semblance of normal.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great point. I mean, I think for, personally, I'll be wearing a mask, especially on planes and in airports.
Yeah, exactly.
For the next 2 years. Honestly,
yeah. Well, because you're in a ton of airports, right? You're in at least 3 airports a week doing your TFC stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, when that gets going again, I'm going to be being extra cautious and trying not to either spread it if I haven't and had the vaccine and could still spread it. I mean, all of those questions will have to be answered as we get closer. But some of the discussions on the proposal from the Oilers are to include the distancing, include the mask wearing. That's in the proposal apparently. And also they're going to try to set up some testing for fans. So maybe there's some almost immediate testing where you could get tested, an hour before puck drop. And as long as you're negative, you're allowed to come through the turnstiles. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah.
But that's all part of the proposals. My point is, I think, the government's officials are doing everything they can to keep reminding us to be vigilant, be smart, wear the masks, wash our hands, distance from people until we're finally completely out of this so that we don't start another avalanche of virus spread. But that doesn't mean we can't be positive and optimistic, because I'm not going to let anybody take away today, man. Today was outstanding to hear that we've moved it up 2 months to have our entire province and country really vaccinated. So that could be by July now. I mean, we're getting very close to almost starting on time. I won't say that yet, but it becomes a little more likely.
Yeah, we're then going to deal with how one provincial government is different from the other, and there are philosophies, there are political philosophies behind who runs each province of the 6 that matter to Canadian Football League fans. It's going to be. We're in for, it's been an interesting 12 months already. We're in for an interesting 3 months as we continue. We'll take a break in a moment, but you got to tell me about Telemiracle. And I saw more than $5 million was raised, and you were on there with some very good Saskatchewan friends.
Oh, buddy. First of all, Cody Fajardo was outstanding. Cody came on with me on the Saturday night. So Saturday, Telemiracle, the hosts from Saskatoon, opened up the windows, the Zoom windows like we're using, and they basically had both Cody and I on, and I got a chance to interview Cody, who's very excited about getting back to playing.
Oh yeah.
Obviously he's trained, and he actually said in the interview that one of the silver linings, and we're all fighting to find silver linings in this terrible past year, but he said one of them is that he's completely healthy, that these players that were banged up, had injuries they were playing through. Sometimes an off season isn't long enough to get you back to 100% before you start the next year. So you're sort of dealing with it for 2 or 3 years and hoping that you don't re-injure it. Cody and all those guys that are in that category, they're healthy. They're ready to go and they're ready to play. So he was outstanding. You know what he did? He said, I'm going to take all the touchdowns I scored, both throwing and running. I'm going to take all the wins we had from the Saskatchewan season in 19, and then I'm going to add my number to it, and I'm going to donate that amount. I can't remember what the total was there, just shy of $300. I'm going to donate that amount, and I challenge Rider fans to donate whatever you can. If it's $7, because that was my number, let's get the good karma going. And I know there was a spike in the total when that happened, and it inspired my son and I. Jared played a song at Telemiracle, but it inspired him and I to donate $270, which of course was 27 times 10. And Jared is 27 years old right now. I, of course, were 27.
Yep.
So it all came together. 5.6 million they raised. I just want to say quickly, Saskatchewan, you continue to just blow me away on your generosity and what makes that province so special, and why I love and I'm proud to call it home. Both my kids were born there, and both of them call it home. They live in Vancouver now, but home is Saskatchewan. When I see that in a pandemic year where everyone's finances are really tight, and see that for the 10th time, Telemiracle has raised over $5 million.
Amazing.
Man, outstanding. Way to go, Saskatchewan. Outstanding.
Absolutely. Amen to all of that. We're going to take a break on the other side. I'm going to throw the suits the thought of an all Saskatchewan offensive line for the Riders. And if the price to pay would be worth it, it would be the advertising would just be incredible. Zinger's got ideas just dripping about how he would advertise 5 offensive linemen. We continue on with Glenn Suter on the Sports Cage. Michael Ball just sent me this text that Alabama has announced the return to full stadium seating next season. So they intend to, in, I guess, September, have 70,000 packed into Bryant-Denny Stadium. So, oh boy.
Well, U.S. President Biden, DT, is President Biden and the new administration in the U.S. Has now gone ahead of their pace to vaccinate 150 million Americans prior to the first 100 days of his presidency, which would be 3 months from his inauguration. So, you're basically, they're way ahead of us pace wise in vaccinations, which opens up the border quicker and gets our American players up here.
Yeah, they're weird about their football in America. They're different. Let's just say they're different about their football in America. I was down there one time. I was a terrible high school football player, as you can imagine, looking at me. But we played a game against a Division IX team from the Los Angeles region. And this was, 1991. One, they lent us their freshman cheerleading squad because they didn't just have a cheerleading squad. They also had a freshman cheerleading squad. We had no cheerleaders at all back home in Okotoks. There was no way. There were 3,000 people at this game. We had like 50 when we were at our absolute peak. Football is a different deal in America. So it in no way surprises me that Florida kept it open for stadiums and they're trying to get in people. Alabama football must be, I don't know what's even number 2 and 3 in priorities in the state of Alabama, but I know football is absolutely number 1.
Right at the top of the list. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not surprised from any announcement out of Florida, but that's a different story. And, but football, I've often said that, sometimes we'll try to compare hockey in our country with football in the United States. And I know I love hockey too, like every Canadian, but it's not the same. It is just not the same, or we would be selling out Regina Pat games. There'd be waiting lists. We'd have high school hockey or, minor hockey, junior hockey, B level hockey that would be sold out arenas. If you want to compare it, that's what you need to see in hockey in our country.
Yeah, college football in kind of the heartland of America, is probably the only thing that remotely rivals soccer in, say, Europe or Africa or South America. It's remarkable. Riders today signing Brett Boyko, late of the BC Lions, Saskatoon's finest, who will join us at 6:05. And it's not going to happen, but it brings from the prospect of, man, what if the Riders pumped out 5 Saskatchewan guys on the offensive line? How incredible that would be.
Well, they're quality players, first of all. And that's what's most important, that these are guys that are quality players. And I put Brett Boyko into that category as well, because we all know what he did in college. He's a guy that, I believe can become an all-star very quickly. I put him and make the comparison with Dakota Shepley a little bit. When he started, it was a little bit bumpy for him in the first few games that he played. But we all knew that, at least, when you talk to his coaches in college and his coaches in high school, you all knew that he was going to become a great player. But when these guys, whatever position it is, have a chance in the NFL first and they're looking for that big paycheck, they're doing the exact same thing down there that they're doing here, but it's a bigger paycheck. And when they're getting their mind wrapped around those tryouts and those free agent camps and all of that, and then they come back to the CFL at some point, there's a process there to get right mentally. And I think, Dakota Shepley went through that. A lot of players have. I think Brett Boyko has. I think he's going to be an all-star. And if they can do it, an all-Canadian O-line, What is a farming instrument or tool or truck or tractor? I'm way out of my expertise here, but what is one that just kind of grinds up the wheat and just kind of takes up tons and tons of real estate? Because I'm thinking of nicknames. If we get an all Canadian O-line in Saskatchewan.
Oh, someone here will have it. Hit us up on the text line at 306-936-6262. You need the farming equivalent of a road grader is what you're thinking. Right?
Exactly.
Whatever
exactly.
it is, it would be phenomenal. Boyko's a guy I'm interested to see because he came back and he played with BC in 2019. I'm sure you called some of his games. Started one game at left tackle and then 4 games at right tackle. And it was rough for Brett in 2019 by quarterback pressures allowed. It was the most of any tackle on a per game basis in the Canadian Football League. But I look at this and go, okay, fix this, work this, like you talk about, get used to the CFL game. The flexibility a guy who has played tackle can provide when you approach a roster for a game would be invaluable to the Riders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, with that kind of versatility, again, that's a Dakota Shepley type of conversation too. I think he's another guy that's so versatile, can play a lot of different spots. And if he can settle in at, say, right tackle, it changes your flexibility as a coach to be able to move your ratio in different places or different ways. So anytime you can find that type of versatility from a Canadian starter that has the potential or is already an all-star, like a Brendan Labatt, then, now you've got a player that opens up other things in other parts of the field. And I think Brett Boyko can be one of those guys, really. I wasn't worried too much about a bumpy start. I really wasn't. I think that's normal for a lot of guys, especially guys that go through the NFL, combine and sort of have to, they come back and they got to get their minds back in that I'm all in. This is my new team, the new league. The yard off the ball is another adjustment that they got to get back and used to again. Right. He played college ball in the States.
Yeah. So UNLV.
Yeah. So he didn't play with that yard off the ball. So that's going to take some time too. And once he gets that down, I think it's going to be a great football player.
Brett Boyko, Brandon Labatt, Dan Clark, Matt Riley, Logan Ferland, one or the other, and Evan Johnson at right tackle. Boom. The advertising, TSN would have a field day with that in preseason. It'd be amazing. The things you guys, John Perlberg would come up with amazing graphics for that. It'd be incredible. And it's an opportunity. You can't go wrong with Saskatchewan guys playing in Saskatchewan. You go wrong.
I love it. You know what? I love it when any team in the CFL is picking their local players. Now you have to start with talent. You can't just do it as a marketing ploy. If the guy has the skills and you can get him and he's a Saskatchewan kid, all the power to you, because it just brings more fans to the stands and gets people excited about the homegrown talent.
Love it. I love it. Suits, thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.